So you said they're censoring liberal voices?
No, conservative.
Oh, conservative voices.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah, there's
Like the free market, right wing.
yeah. So
Or
you see
conservative, like
a lot
no
of
gays, no.
so a lot of conservative influencers you see on a lot of their posts. Fact check, and you click on it. It says they say this is partially false or completely false, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, like you don't see that on liberal voices, just conservative.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Who wants to do a New York accent?
I could try a New York
Yes, let's
accent.
hear
It's
it.
gonna suck.
Hey,
Like,
it's all
hey,
good.
I'm walking here. Hey, boss, can I get a slice of pizza with the pepperoni? Maybe a coffee. Hey, look. Fuck out of here. I don't know. Yeah, that's like.
About you.
Yo, I was on my way to work the other day, and saw the guy cut me off in the lane.
All right. Now, do men or women have it easier in life?
I don't quite have an answer to that. I do believe. Ooh, this is okay. Men and women have it. Well, I wouldn't know who has it easier.
Oh, sure. That's the last time.
I wouldn't phrase it as a question of do men and women have it easier. It's like individuals. Some have easier lives or harder lives. I wouldn't generalize as a whole and say one gender has it easier. There's aspects in which women probably have it easier, and there's aspects where
Can you
men
raise
have
some
it easier.
examples?
What?
Can you raise some examples?
Raise some examples. Well, this isn't very. I don't quite know all the statistics, but I'm just gonna quote them loosely. Let's say work deaths. Men are more likely to die at work because they typically do more dangerous jobs because they're more. I guess they typically are more likely to take higher paying dangerous jobs, or let's say jobs involving physical labor that are more dangerous are likely to suit men better if they're physically stronger. Not that it excludes women per se. Rates of men in prison, that might be a result of the fact that generally men are more disagreeable, and that's more likely to give them and make them like have an antisocial personality disorder or something like that, and more likely to end up in prison as a result. So I do believe that I wouldn't generalize and say there are absolute differences between men and women, but there are trends in terms of differences between men and women, and they lead to, let's say the prison example might be a result of that. Some people would argue that maybe it's a social conditioning thing. I don't quite. I wouldn't jump to say that that's the only reason, and there's no like evolutionary or biological or genetic factors, personality factors.
Wouldn't you say that
I
if you went around this park and punched 10 people in the face,
Yeah.
and if a woman went around this park and punched 10 people in the face, wouldn't you say your punishment would be
Yeah, that's
heavier?
likely. There are people that yeah, that's a good example for sure. I don't disagree with that. But at the same time, let's say a woman might feel less safe than a man typically does by virtue of the same. No, that's not the same reason. I take that back. But that's just a different example where there's a difference. And I'm not saying it's wrong that there's a difference, but there are differences. So, in short, I'd hesitate to generalize as a whole. Like, for example, I think, let's say, in divorce court, let's say, a woman's more likely to be favored than a man is. I'm aware of that. That's one of the ways where there's maybe a form of inequality. But there are other ways as well. So I'd hesitate to make any broad generalizations. It's on a case-by-case basis. And obviously there's probably injustices for both.
Wouldn't you say that in general,
Yeah.
dating would be easier for women too? Wouldn't you say that?
Okay.
Because let's say you walked around this park
Yeah.
and you smiled at 100 women.
Yes.
How many of them would actually talk to you?
Okay. So.
And if a woman did the same thing, how many men would talk to them? You see what I'm saying?
It's
Wouldn't
tricky.
you say they have more of a choice?
this isn't quite my idea, but it's sort of a theory that for every one male ancestor that we have, we'd have 2 female ancestors. And what that means is that, let's say there was 2 males, 2 females, maybe the one male would have offsprings with both the females, and one male would have no partner. And that's a result of that. Since women need a care for the child for evolutionary reasons, they're more likely to be more selective than the men are. The men aren't as selective in terms of the capability of their spouse. This isn't my idea, but I'm just repeating it. So, lost my train of thought. Yeah, so for that reason, women are more selective in terms of their partners. And they choose from the top of the male dominance hierarchy. Yeah, that's pretty much the thought. I'm not elaborating, but I wouldn't assign a gender role to someone, which means if a woman's happier having a career, then that's perfectly fine. You know, whatever makes people happy. Typically, though, I think a woman is more likely to be the caregiver of the children, so to speak. And there may be, I guess we'll attribute it to evolution, I'm not sure. There may be natural reasons for that aren't purely societal. I do believe women are inclined for, let's say, we'll call it evolutionary reasons, to want a male who is in some ways more dominant than them. Like, women don't like, this is a generalization, so I take that back. I'm assuming that women prefer men who make more money than them, who are more capable than them in certain ways. That's not diminishing their role, but just in certain regards, I think in relationships, women want someone more dominant than men in certain ways, and men don't particularly care for that. In fact, maybe they want someone who's more submissive than them, and that leads to a certain, like the example you're giving about being a housewife, like, men are expected to be the providers or to provide in some way. It's possible that some people can have a happy relationship where that dynamic is flipped, but it's possible that in a lot of cases they won't be able to respect their spouse, the husband or boyfriend, as a result. That's my opinion.
You can't really argue with evolution, and if you're gonna want to like change a whole society that has evolved based on these 2 gender roles, it's like, you know, it definitely would take a lot longer, and you can expect a lot of man. It's, you know, honestly, I don't think it's like, it's not like a deal breaker for me. I don't give much thought to it. When they're trying to change societal rules, they're basically applying blanket statements to all of these cases as a whole. And I think that's wrong, and each case should be treated individually.
So the question is, I think the debate is over whether those categories are arbitrary or they originate for a reason. Whether there's sort of an abuse of, I suppose, power, or whether they developed because they serve a purpose.
Correct, yeah.
So let's say if you believe in a capitalist society, then you believe that the people that provide value are the ones that get the wealth. I'm not saying that necessarily is true across the board, but that's sort of that perspective. So the elimination of all sorts of like categories and norms, I like the fact that it makes people free to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
But to apply it very to say that all sorts of categories and dominance hierarchies are purely arbitrary and shouldn't exist might not help us. Like, I agree with equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. That's my personal
Equity,
opinion.
right?
Yeah, not like equality, like enforced equality, right? It's equality of opportunity. It's a difficult question. I don't have the answers. Like, like how do you avoid like leaving behind people that even with equality of opportunity aren't capable of, let's say, having the same wealth, or aren't capable, like, what do you do with people, let's say, with an IQ that's too low for them to get, this is just an example, right? But if someone has an IQ that doesn't allow them to support themselves, then what do you do with such a person? How do you help them in a society? Because I think a society that ignores those people is probably not a great society. Like, I do believe humans are equal in terms of how they should be. It's difficult. I don't know. Because I was gonna say in terms of how they're treated, right? But then
I definitely would love to travel. I also think, based on your previous question, that society relies a lot on structure. And, you know, when people have jobs, they're like, you know, the 9-to-5 jobs, as opposed to people who don't have jobs. Like, let's say no one had jobs and everything was AI. You know, I'm sure there'd be a rise in crime, and, you know, everyone just have nothing to do.
why would there be a rise in crime?
Because people wouldn't be likely to stay in their house most of the time.
But if they have money, or you're saying they commit crime out of boredom?
I'm saying, but not, you know, not everyone's gonna have money.
It's okay.
I'm saying I think the same ratio of people that, like, meaning when stuff become AI, there's gonna become another generation of people like, oh, this guy invented the software, now he's rich, as opposed to someone had nothing to do with it. You know, he's not gonna have as much money. Like like software designers. You know,
Yeah.
they would have. I think the hierarchy would change a lot, but it would just be a different form of what it is now.
Yeah.
Not everyone's born with the same ambition, right?
Yeah.
But everyone has the same opportunities. I don't believe that there's structural, what's it called?
Systemic inequality?
Systemic inequality. It depends how ambitious you are. A hustler could be hustling on the sidewalk all day, and you can make enough to get an iPhone 12, you know? It just depends how ambitious you are. And I think your mindset really changes, like, your life and the way you do things.
I have a friend who, he's intelligent and capable, but he's not ambitious. He's not trying to make a lot of money. He's just trying to live as healthy as he can. And that could include physical health and mental health and just what's healthy for his personality as a whole. And he's actually thinking about moving to a commune because he wants to live naturally, because he thinks it's healthy for, not quite for idealistic reasons, for practical reasons. He believes that's what will, he believes in, like, the evolutionary primal shit, and he thinks it will give him a better quality of life. So that was with regards to hustle culture. Like, the hustle culture doesn't necessarily make people happy, but I think what he was saying was, like, if that's what you want, you can get it.
Yeah.
I don't, like, it's hard, I can't answer, like, the questions of what society needs, like, what's right for society.
Right? Yeah.
Like, it's such a complex issue, and that's why when people make broad assertions and people are ideological about things and they don't acknowledge that maybe they're wrong, then I don't like that.
All right, let me give you an easy question. What were you doing during the lockdown in March and April?
March and April?
Yeah.
I was in my apartment. Again, I don't have a lot of expenses. I'm a single guy. I had a job before quarantine. Yeah, I was holed up in my apartment.
What were you doing, playing video
Probably
games?
depressed. Yeah.
Working out?
I spent a lot of
Cooking?
time on online, like, group chat, video group chat,
Discord live?
It wasn't. I don't know Discord. It was a house party. There was like friends of mine.
Zoom parties.
And yeah, that kind of thing. What did you do?
So I was working from home.
Okay.
I did a lot of exercise. I had a chance to go biking a lot. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints. I'm coming from a small town in Connecticut anyway. It feels like I lived in quarantine my entire life, so it wasn't really like any different. It was just, it's like I come to New York, it's not so hustle bustle like it was 2 years ago, a year ago even, but I'm fine with that. You go to either extreme and you're wrong, you just have to find a happy medium, and that's what everyone is, that's what everyone's trying to do nowadays. I hope.
Yeah, I mean,
I get all my scientific views and medical views from like exclusively South Park and Rick and Morty.
so yeah.
The same thing applies on the right too, where there's crazy conspiracy theorists or Karens that will yell at you about how the vaccines are killing your kids. So like, these people exist on both ends of the spectrum, and I don't like either of them. I have a lot of diversity in terms of the political opinions I interact with. I'm aware that they exist.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in an echo chamber, but I also don't care enough about politics. It's not what makes them happy to be advocates. So maybe it is good for their lives as long as they're not like bitter and resentful, and they're actually being productive and actually working towards the change they want to see, not just
If I can,
holding a sign and yelling at people and being divisive.
so if I can add, I'm Jewish, and if I see something like someone on their Instagram, they're promoting BDS for example,
Yeah.
that's I take that as a personal attack on me and my,
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, it's like politics in general. I couldn't give two shits. I'm just living my life. You're living your life. But I feel that people get too caught up in their ignorance, and it could be. It's not that like they're insensitive. They just know. They're following. Like they're being told different stuff, whether it's from media or school. Culture in general. But yeah, like I personally, I don't really care. It's stuff like that I take more personal.
Or if those are their most important values, I don't want someone to share my values.
Right.
But the thing is, I don't think those should be the most important values someone has. That's at the core, really.
Right.
Like there's more fundamental, essential values that you should be focused on before simply like what political opinion you have that you don't actually do anything about.
Right.
Like is it pragmatic? Like is it actually making it? Is it related to you in a practical way? Are you doing anything based off of it? Are you?
I say you should try to work on yourself before you try to change the world.
Right.
Yeah. It's like you're protesting about things, but you don't have your personal affairs in order. How do you like? You're not one to